Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming down at such short notice, but I thought it was important to actually go over the events of last night. Before I start, I'd like to thank, first of all, the men and women of the Richmond Police Department for continuing to be dedicated to the city and to everything that they're doing, to the Virginia State Police Department, and I continue to describe them as the heroes of the state. They go back and forth wherever needed at these times, and every time that we've called them, they've come. Also to VCU and the VCU police who were there for us last night. Last night, well, let's start from the beginning. And sometime early Sunday morning, we believe after 1:30 in the morning or before daylight, someone removed the Marcus David Peters sign from the Lee Circle. That sign was removed and location unknown. I believe we put some remarks out about that on Twitter. After those remarks went out, the sign reappeared on social media with a Confederate battle flag draped over it. No one has taken credit for it, to my knowledge. However, that did spark the fire of some protests last night. One of the protests was led by 381 movement, who came out and met up at the Lee Circle. We also had flyers that go around that we believe are linked to Antifa or are Antifa related or related. Once we started looking at these things and these entities started in motion, 381 began marching. They wanted to get their message out, and they did. We spoke to them. They actually moved as best they could onto the sidewalk. They walked, they protested, they got their word out. They actually went towards our 3rd precinct and returned back to the Lee Circle. Now, inside and a couple of Antifa people or Antifa-like type people embedded themselves. As we watched that protest go on, we saw these two protesters or these two rioters begin to spray paint and do tagging along the way. We kept our eye on them. But as soon as the protest for 381 ended, the Antifa people moved into play. We believe that 381 did the best they could to keep the Antifa element away from their protest. So after that, the Antifa people went over to between Grace and Broad Street, in which where we made contact with them. Excuse me, my mouth is kind of dry today. But we made contact with them over there. A dispersal order was given to them, which they did not adhere to. After that, we gave an unlawful assembly order and told them that it was declared an unlawful assembly. And at that point in time, we went to work. We ended up arresting 10 people right there on the spot. As we were making those arrests, the 2 subjects who were embedded in 381 walked by. The 2 who were doing damage to property. They themselves were also taken into custody. So a total of 12 people were arrested last night. While we were making those final arrests, the book bags that we took from the individuals out there were filled with hammers, blunt objects, smoke bombs, improvised devices, as well as flares. We have seen flares being used in the past where they actually throw those flares into vehicles, police vehicles, to help speed along the process of those vehicles being caught on fire. These subjects were arrested and charged appropriately, but I think the big thing that we are taking from this is exactly what RPD and the city has been saying, that peaceful protesters are here, and they come out and they actually get their message out, and they adhere to the laws as best as they can. However, there is that element of Antifa or Antifa-like subjects who have to embed themselves into larger peaceful protests in order to cause disruption. Standing by themselves, they don't have high numbers, but that's what they seek to do. And last night it didn't work. And a great deal of thank you also goes to 381 for policing their own protest. Absolutely phenomenal. Like I said before, RPD stands ready to help facilitate the First Amendment rights of peaceful protesters. We can do that all day, every day. So right now, I'll just take a few questions. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, when you say Antifa related, what do you mean by that? And then also, how do you know that these 10 people were Antifa? What knowledge
They fit the description as everything. Antifa's whole object is chaos and disruption. And not everyone is a member of Antifa, but they are very well likened by their influence and their philosophies. And they will go out with Antifa people and actually do this kind of disruption. Much like we used to see with gang activity, people may not necessarily be gang member, but they are gang affiliated or gang related. They're not yet in there, but they are actually moving that way. That's what I mean by gang, related to Antifa or Antifa influenced. Any other questions?
I want to ask,
Thank you.
what is 381? I know during the last Wednesday.
Could you speak up just a little bit for me?
The press conference with Mayor Stoney last Wednesday, he said that it was Richmond strike that led that protest and did all the damage. And so what is 381? And then you said there are two individuals that you identified as Antifa. Which ones are they?
No, two individuals I said were picked up later, okay, along with the other individuals that we believe are Antifa and are Antifa related or likened to Antifa's philosophy. So there were more than that. That group of last night could very well be very, very deeply embedded into Antifa. The other group, I don't recall Mayor Stoney's press conference, so I can't speak to that intelligently at this time.
And what is 381?
381 is a movement that is very close to Black Lives Matter.
And then I also wanted to ask about last week. The business owners are asking kind of, I know you said that they kind of lost your officers last night a little bit at certain times. That's why the disruption happened. Can you describe what happened last week, why there was so much disruption? I know at the Omni there was like $200,000 worth of damage.
They moved very swiftly on us. But we have since made some adjustments into how we do things. I won't go over our strategies or our capabilities at this time, but I think you can tell from those strategies and capabilities that we're making an impact now. People are being arrested. The First Amendment right with 381 was fulfilled last night with no problem, but then when it went to this disruption, we were right there. And that really does go back to the men and women that I thanked earlier, RPD, men and women, Virginia State Police, VCU. So we are there. And also, a great deal of it does come with our intelligence and our undercover people and those who are actually inside some of these organizations that actually could be considered confidential informants who actually feed us information.
Can you talk about the destruction that happened last night? You said you saw some spray painting happening or tagging.
Yes, last night we had two individuals that we saw doing some tagging. That was the damage to property that we observed. Later on that night, we did get a report that two windows were broken, and we are trying to confirm if that was part of the protest and who actually did that. But we can't confirm right now that that was actually part of it, but we cannot eliminate the fact that it could be as well too.
Can you say where that tagging and broken windows?
I do not have that on the tip of my head, but I can find that out for you. Any other questions? All right, it's a great day in Richmond. Thank you guys for coming out.